So we're going to work on some different scenarios where a partner is either coming in or leaving a partnership. So let's start with A. He's going to make a contribution, and the contribution is not given to you, but he's going to end up owning a fourth of the partnership capital. And so the question is, how much does he need to invest, assuming that there'll be no goodwill or no bonus? So then we have to do this calculation. All right, so let's so E's contribution or investment is going to be 25%. He's got to end up with 25% of the business after his contribution. So it's got to be the total capital here. I already did the math there for you. Plus E's contribution. So if E's contribution is X, so X is going to be 25% of the 270 plus 25% of X. That's multiplying the 25% times the two elements in the parentheses. So then you can subtract 0.25 from both sides, and a quarter of 270. So then you would divide both sides by 0.75, and you get X equals 90,000. So you could check this. I always like to check things when I can. You can put the 90,000 in there, and then add it up, get the total partnership capital after the contribution, and check and see, is 90,000 a fourth of that? Then you know it worked. So you can always check after you're done to be sure that the incoming partner got the percent that they were supposed to get. Whether you use a bonus or whether you use goodwill or none, it should still work out like that at the end. So that is QA. That is part A. Let's try part B. So E is going to contribute $36,000 in cash and get a 10% interest. And that's 10% of the total partnership capital after the $36,000 has been contributed. Goodwill is to be recorded. So that means that we're going to first figure out how much goodwill there is, because $36,000 for 10% implies the value of the 100%. So we'll mark up the partnership to that full value, fair value, before we admit the new partners, and that write-up goes to the existing partners. So let's do the math for that. All right, so what is the implied fair value? The implied fair value would be that $36,000 divided by the 10%. Okay, and what's the current partnership capital plus the cash that's being contributed? So right now the current partnership capital is 270, and they're getting another 36. So the goodwill implied is 54,000, and that 54,000 would be then allocated to the current partners in the proportion in which they share profits. So let's set that up here. Okay, so I've added a new line here that they tell you in the problem what percentage they share of the profits. So we have goodwill total of 54, and I have to spread it here to the four current partners based on the 30, 10, 40, 20% that they're owed, because that's how they're sharing profits. So 30% of the 54 is going to go to partner B, 10% is going partner A, 10% is going to partner B, 40% is going to partner C, and 20% is going to partner D. Okay, and then we can do our little check. Let's see if that 36,000 now is 10% of the total capital after he's admitted. And so E better be 10% of this new 360,000 which it looks like the math there is right. So you can always check it, which I really like. So let's do part C. So let's figure out the implied goodwill. We have 42,000 contribution, and it's going to get 20%, so the implied value of the partnership is 210. The amount of the capital will be the 270 plus the 42 that's coming in. So actually the value when E is admitted is greater than when E is not part. So you basically have negative goodwill, meaning that the goodwill is going to the incoming partner. And so we have to calculate that algebraically. So let's look at the equation. That E's contribution, or E's investment, plus the goodwill that E is going to be given is going to be 20% of the original capital plus the contribution plus the goodwill. So then you have to solve for the goodwill. So let's put in the items that we know. We know 42,000 is going to be the contribution plus X equal, and then we've got 0.2 or 20% times the original capital 270 plus the 42 plus X. Okay, and so then you solve for X. So you multiply out the 20% times the 270, the 20% times the 42, the 20% times X, and then you subtract X from both sides. So let's do that. So this is just solving for X here, not really major. So now I'm going to subtract the 0.2x from both sides. So now it's just going to be 0.8x on this side is going to be equal to the 62.4. Now subtract the 42 from both sides. And now I divide both sides by the 0.8. So that is the goodwill that we've computed for. So E is going to get that as well as the 42,000 credited. So let's see if it works. So this 67.5 better be 20% of that. Let's see if it works. So there's your check figure. And that's a real nice way to make sure that it's working. I think this is the most difficult of the computations, is when there's sort of negative goodwill, if you will, or there's the partners bringing the goodwill in, so the value of the partnership is higher than just the cash he's bringing in. And so you have to know, that has to trigger in your mind that you have to do this kind of a calculation here. All right, so you have to be tipped off that it's time to do that, and then know how to do that. Okay, let's work on part D. E is going to contribute cash and get 20% interest. There's no goodwill or revaluation. We've got a profit split here. After the contribution, what are the capital balances? Okay, let's set that up. So here, E is going to be credited with 20% of the partnership interest, which is going to be 20% of the 270 plus the 55,000 it contributes. So it's going to be the 270 plus the 55. Guess I had a typo there. That looks okay. So he's actually going to be credited with more, with 10,000 more than the cash. So it's going to be credited with the 65. And so that 10,000 that he was credited is going to come away from the other partner. So basically he got a $10,000 bonus for coming in. And so that has to come out of the 4 partners' capital accounts in the ratio of their profits. So that 10,000, so that should be minus. And so then, of course, we can do our little check figure. We're making sure that E is going to end up with 20%. And that's true. So our check figure is working. Okay, let's try E. So what that means basically is that C is going to receive a check for 125% of the 90,000. And so we have to actually write up the capital account to that amount so that when we credit cash and debit capital, the C's capital will zero out. So we've got to add the 25% of her capital account in there. Because they're going to write her a check for the 112.5. So where did that 22.5 come from? It came from the other partners. And so each of these partners has to contribute their pro rata portion of the 22.5. And so it's not going to be 25, 25, 25 because C is not contributing to herself. So it's going to have to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, since they're equal ratios. So minus 1/3 of that. It's going to come out of this one. Minus 1/3 and minus 1/3. All right. And then you can get the ending capital. Is that what they asked for in each of the partners? After the withdrawal, what are the capital balances? So after the withdrawal, of course, and then the partnership capital that will be left will be those other 3 amounts. Okay, so those are all sort of 5 different kinds of partnership activities, and we'll do a few more exercises to give you experience with that.